So I am so excited to have as our guest today on From Passion to Purpose, one of my favorite people in the whole world. And I am so grateful that he is giving us some of his time today. He was recently awarded an achievement award from the Brewers Association with their recognition award. You've probably heard of his business. You've probably helped support his business a little along the way. My friend Oscar Wong, the founder of Highland Brewing in Asheville, North Carolina. I won't say the president because we'll talk about that. You kind of passed those reins on to someone else. But it started by accident, didn't it? Let's begin with your story of Highland Brewing and not the typical craft brewing start, right?
No, it is not. I had retired, quote, retired from my
Mhm.
engineering profession. I was very fortunate. I had an engineering design build for nuclear waste business that I was able to sell. I was home for 4 years at my wife's recommendation to just take a break. I was introduced to an award-winning brewer who needed help, and we got started. And my wife's reaction was ecstatic because after 4 years, she needed me out of the house. And so we got going in Asheville in 94. To make sure that I didn't have a dream about what we're doing now. My dream at the time was to become one of two or three little breweries in town that people come by, and I'd have my personal watering hole, and that'd be it. Nothing. This is nothing like what I had in mind.
You certainly created a change in attitude, a change in business, and a change of culture in the Asheville, North Carolina area. But even when it started growing, did you have any idea that the big boys were going to come into town too? And I mean, talk about that area of competition in business.
From the very beginning, I wanted us to be really good and the best we could be. So we got to be the big girl in town. And I thought, and we had a lot of competition nipping on our heels all the time, because as you get bigger, even slightly bigger, you're considered, quotes, corporate. And I thought, corporate? I'm still gambling my life's retirement on this. But when the big boys came, that was a kind of a shock, really. It forced us to up our game. And that's the American way. You either adapt, take the competition on and survive, or you get run over.
Well, I've been run over on the sidelines. We don't want to talk. We try not to use those terms. Remember, run over. But you guys, you guys certainly didn't get run over. Let's talk about that business timing. I've heard you talk about that before, about the timing of your business. How did people first find out that you even existed?
We were we made what we thought was pretty tasty beer, but most people didn't care for that style because they were drinking light, very light lagers, and these were heavy and considered home brew. So we went around town, and I had a little container in the trunk of the car, and we would drop into the bar or restaurant and we're making some beer. You interested in tasting? I said, sure. So we run back out to the car and just bring back a couple cups, and we'd sip it and say, that's not so bad. It's a little different, a little stronger. And I have to tell you, all those days that we did those back in the 90s was totally illegal.
Hopefully,
However,
the statute of limitations has passed on that, right?
exactly. So I can say it now.
So when you started this business, you certainly have said that you had no thoughts that it was going to become what it has today. But you founded it on principles that were really important to you. Things like quality, integrity, things that I know are have always been important to you, even before you were in the beer industry. Let's talk about those qualities a little bit, because I think that speaks volumes about you, not only as a person, as a business leader, but also as a community leader and a community servant.
Well, I learned a lot growing up. My father used to had a small grocery store, and in fact, it was about a 10 by 30-foot grocery store. We raised 5 of us kids. The first 3 of us and mother and father slept in the bedroom above the shop. One bedroom, that was where we all slept. And for instance, on Sunday afternoons, one I hated because I was in grade school. We'd sit around a low table and pick the little black spots out of the rice, which you have in Jamaica. It's kind of so. And then one day, one of our customers, who is rather poor, kind of complains and, Mr. Wong, how come you charge I have a penny a pound more for your rice? He says, I can get it for this much down at Mr. Chung's. He said, well, go get it. And she said, no, his stuff has all that black stuff in it. So the lesson to me was, even the poorest people would actually pay a little more for quality. No, they could have simply pulled out their little black stuff themselves. So the quality aspect and the way he dealt with his customers and his suppliers made him always one people wanted to deal with. So it was something inculcated from day one.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that you were growing up in Jamaica. So you have an interesting background. You were first generation Chinese, born
Yes.
and raised in Jamaica.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
My parents are from southern China, and the diaspora started by the people I come from through Hong Kong, which was British. So the people I come from ended up in 5 distinct British locations. And those are Singapore, Uganda, West Indies, Vancouver, and England. I happen to be the West Indies contingent. So I'm a Chinese, Jamaican, island boy.
And then you came to the United States.
Yes, my dad was very gracious and had faith in me. So you can imagine a little grocery store like that to send me to Notre Dame was a big, big deal. And he could barely afford it, but he came through. And I've been very fortunate. I think it started when I was quite young. I had a facility for numbers, and my uncle, my mom's brother, said, he's really quick with numbers, and said, yeah, to study engineering. You're talking about in the 40s now, so.
Yeah, it's hard for me to imagine. You just celebrated a birthday, right?
October 21, hit the big 80.
Well, we both have zeros in our ages this year, so
This year, yeah.
It's big years for us. That's right.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you always wanted to be an engineer. You loved doing that, as you said, the math and those kinds of things. And so after graduation, you started your own company?
Well, no. At first, I actually stayed on for a grad school, of which I was rather proud because I wrote my dad and I said, I'm going on for my master's and I'm off the dole. You don't have to send another penny. I got an assistantship and I'm done. I actually worked as an engineer for, 13 years before I started my own. My first scholarship was in high school. That was my kind of first taste of, hey, wait a minute, I can pull some stuff off. I did not get a scholarship to college, even though a lot of my schoolmates from the year before and the year before that ended up getting scholarships to all kinds of fancy schools. And when our class came by, our headmaster, Father McMullen, just shook his head and said, my God, this class we got skunked, not a one. The class after us started getting scholarships again. I said, we were the party class. It was sad, but we all survived.
And so when you were at Notre Dame, is that when you developed your love for football as well?
Oh, yeah, because I had no clue about it. I only knew soccer. I pestered the heck out of my classmates about it, and I'm a fan now, and can't wait to take on the Gamecocks.
Won't be this year for sure, but maybe
No.
sometime. Living on your own, growing up and being out in the real world, were you always like a mixologist and creating craft cocktails or experimenting with foods or any of that may have had a little bit of influence on the beer industry later?
Mostly just beer. Actually, my first taste of beer was when I was in elementary school. I was about 11.
Really?
My dad would cook and nobody in my family can tolerate alcohol. However, in the Chinese system, he used to cook on Sundays in particular, and we would have um, a big spread, and we would end up with fried prawns, roast pork, roast duck, all those considered hot foods. And the cool foods were rice and vegetables and soup. So in order to balance the hot food, he'd give us a couple ounces of beer. I was the only one that liked it or tolerated it in the whole family. So that's how I started. I had that taste from a very young age.
And so when you travel now, I'm always curious because when I travel, and I travel quite a bit, and we sit down at a bar to order a drink and Highland Brewing is on the menu, I always say, that's from where I live. So what do you say when you sit down to a bar and when you're traveling and someone maybe doesn't know who you are? What's it like when they offer you a Highland? What happens? What's that feel like?
It is a fabulous feeling, I have to tell you. And most of the time when I go to places that they don't know me, I'll just ask, what kind of beers do you have? And, without divulging anything, just to get an unadulterated reaction.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a great feeling, no question about it. It just feels so good about, hey, you know what? We are well thought of even here. And it's neat.
Absolutely. I mean, it has to be. It has to be a great feeling of satisfaction and
Oh,
and a little rewarding for you as well. Now, you still go in the office every day, but you're no longer the president of the company. Tell us about that story because I think this has to be a real career high for you as well.
absolutely. I actually tried to. Leah wanted to join the company a few years out of college, and I said, no, you need to do your own thing. And she was very gracious about it. Kind of ticked her off, but she was very gracious. But she went off and did her thing. She sold yearbooks and did very, very well. And when I finally thought, I'd love to have her come on board, her reaction was, it looks exciting and it's fun, Dad, but you can't afford me. And she was absolutely right, because I can just say categorically, she's been with us for now 7 years, and she's making half of what she was making 7 years ago.
Wow.
That puts in perspective. When time came for me to say, okay, you need to take over the presidency, she didn't feel like she was ready, and she put me off for a year and a half until finally I had it on the board retreat discussion agenda, and I had it all sorted out with all the partners and the board members. So I said, okay, this is, and it was voted in, and it was it. 2 years into it, I thought, well, hell, she might as well be board chair and CEO too. So that was easier. And now she's just really running with it and doing a fantastic job. So I'm vice president, founder, and available guru in the back room.
Well, it makes Highland even more unique now because you didn't have that beer background and now it's run by a female. I mean, it's just an incredible story of success. And from a town like Asheville, which at the time certainly wasn't known for its craft brewing, but you have been called the godfather of craft brewing. What does that make you feel like when people say that?
I feel pretty proud of that. It's such an honor. Now, I've heard other things like grandfather, which I don't like as well.
No, we won't go there. I mean, you're 25 years in, right? Is that right? Is this your 25th year?
26th, 1994.
Okay.
So moving into the 27th next year. So
a few years down the road, it'll be the 30th anniversary. What new things are there out there to do in the beer industry?
what's happening so far, different styles. America at one point was considered the backwater for beer, and the Europeans thought we didn't know what we didn't know what good beer was. Fast forward with the craft beer, we now influence the rest of the world in beer making and innovation. So I couldn't even guess as to what could happen in the next few years. because tastes change, you know.
Even I think the recent changes in the last few years of things like food trucks and traveling activities and events. I mean, you guys have really just mastered all of that. You've made it a destination. I mean, I attended several weddings at Highland in the last few years. It has
Oh, you
truly
have.
become a destination, not just a night out for a beer.
Well, I have to admit that because of my background in growing up in a retail operation, I absolutely hate retail. You could be 100% on your game, and then a few percent of you people are going to fuss about something that they have no business fussing about. I hate it. However, we were the last one to have a tasting room.
Hmm.
Everybody else did, and we were getting to be, what's the word, kind of the old fuddy-duddies. And the staff actually pushed me and said, we have to have a tasting venue. And that's where we actually turned around and started it, and it kept growing and growing. And we were always slow. I try to be good. I don't want to
Deliberate.
be the first.
How about deliberate instead of slow?
Deliberate. There we go.
Yes.
Well, I have to give you a little. Did I put in my notes about what my mother's observation about when I was about 11? She somehow took the opportunity to say, "Son, you're fairly bright. You're very lazy, but by God, you're lucky." And that made such an impression on me. And I said, "Hey, you know what? I'm going to roll. I'm a lucky guy."
I don't know about lucky because I think that it's been a lot of hard work along the way. And
That's partly true. I know a lot of very bright people who work very hard with great ideas, and something pops up in the timing, the circumstance, situation nobody could predict, and they go under. So I believe somebody I just read the other day just reiterated that. Said, "Yeah, that's a big part of life."
And what about during this pandemic? I mean, things have changed tremendously for the way we do business, especially here in North Carolina. The bars, I think, are getting ready to open again. But you,
Yep.
because of that retail, right? Maybe that's what saved you during the pandemic was having that different aspect that you qualified maybe for a different type of business. How do you think that pandemic is changing how we do business?
We lost 40% of our business overnight because of restaurants, bars closed and on our own on site. We used the opportunity. Nobody was let go for the whole duration. And we took, let me think, mid-March, April, end of May, 1st of June, we reopened. So 2.5 months, we found work for everybody to prepare for when we reopen. So we've heard a lot of comments that we're a little further along than anybody else with our distancing or movements, and I feel proud of that. So it's changed our business in the sense of, at least on the retail side of it, as to how we operate. And I think there's a sad part of it to me because part of the fun of going to bars from the old days is the conviviality, the camaraderie, backslapping, and just now there's kind of a distancing requirement, and everybody's kind of suspect of everybody else.
Right.
That's terrible. I hate that.
It's really hard for people like us who are social people, and we need that social interaction and the socialization and the hugs. And I'm not good with their hugs.
Exactly. I mean, I just actually Leah's a little bit strict on it, but every now and then I'll say we have staff in here, and she doesn't need to know about it, but we did a quick hug.
We won't tell her.
She is very strict, actually.
Well, and she feels that responsibility, I'm sure.
That's it.
Absolutely.
She explained it to me, said, "Dad, I got to look at the whole company." I said, "Yeah, I know, okay." I'm a little bit looser than she is.
So during the pandemic, have you binge watched anything or binge read? I know you're quite an avid reader, I believe, aren't you?
Yes. Well, let's see now. In the more recent days, in the last few months, I've gone through Sapiens, the rise and fall of the dinosaurs, the Apocalypse Factory, about the Hanford plutonium operation where I did work in my consulting days. I'm now on Varina by Charles Fraser. In between, I don't count the ones that are like Baldacci,
Oh,
David
yes.
Baldacci.
Huh?
See, I don't count those. Those are like my relaxed,
Those are fun.
easy read,
Okay.
just action.
I wanted to mention also the way that you and I know each other is through Rotary. You are very active in the Asheville Rotary Club in Asheville, North Carolina, and throughout our district. But you've done a lot of things around the world with Rotary as well. You have a heart for service. You're very community minded. What was it that appealed to you about being in Rotary?
I was in Rotary in Charlotte back in the 80s before women were allowed.
Oh, wow.
I go back that far. Its principles are identical with mine.
Mhm.
And the fact is, you could actually connect with the community in a different way than just business. I'm made up in Scotland, England, and they all have a beer at lunchtime, and we just so backward here. A glass of wine at lunchtime is appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
We're too strict here.
I think you and I could bring it back. Let's work on that. Let's make that our goal. We'll make that a new tradition here.
Yeah.
I don't know how well that would go over in the deep South, though. So since you've lived in the South for a while now, do you have a favorite Southern phrase or Southern saying?
There's several, but one of the things that struck me along the line is I love Bless Her Heart because it's the prelude to the skewer.
Yeah, they teach you as a young child in the South that as long as you say bless your heart first, you can say anything you want about somebody afterwards.
It's just one of those. Well, as far as Southern foods now,
Mm-hmm.
some things that I've discovered here: biscuits and gravy, chicken fried steak, fried okra. Those three come to mind as foods that I can founder on it.
Yeah, you can't beat a good fried okra. Listen, that's a favorite side, absolutely. So after everything you've done and learned and accomplished all these years, and we mentioned earlier you're about to turn 80 this year, which I find incredibly surprising, and I want to be you when I grow up. What advice would you give your younger self now that you've had those experiences and maybe even learned from some lessons in life?
Looking back on it, I would say I was not as I was not nearly as focused as most of my classmates. A little bit too loose about things. Some people, I've been on different boards, and every now and then I get a comment that said, "Is anything ever serious to you?" Because I feel like we do take things too seriously sometimes, or most of the time. We get so caught up in life every day and get so much angst. Listen, maybe it's my Jamaican upbringing. I don't know.
Yeah, they're a little more laid back there, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that you have also a deep sense of gratitude. What does gratitude mean to you? What are you grateful for in your life?
Looking back on my life from the time I was in grade school, I just have fond memories all the way up till today about all the people who were just so kind, so helpful, and meant so much to me in so many ways. One simple example is like I graduated, I was coming back from grad school, I met this guy in a bar in South Bend, Indiana. And I said, gee, I got this summer job in Chicago and I don't have the wheels, I don't know what to get. He said, well, I have a car that I'm getting ready to sell. He says, what kind of money you talking about? And I just throw out some nominal couple $100. This is 1965 now. He said, well, you're better off buying it in Chicago because my car will be, too expensive for you. I said, well, okay, I'll give it a shot. I said, well, do you have the money? I said, no. I said, tell you what, here's $200. when you get up, you come back this fall, you're probably making up by then. You can buy a car up there. Then that's what I did. I mean, that's just one example of innumerable experiences.
Right. Yeah, we're very blessed by some of the folks that come into our paths, aren't we? Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. So every fall, I know from all of my friends and Bill and everyone else that they're it's like this trek to Highland every October, November, because it's cold mountain. That's probably, do you think is that what you guys are best known for?
That's probably our most iconic and unique.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think it has become so popular? I mean, more popular than, I mean, it is so popular that there is, of course, a limited edition, I guess, and people line up outside the brewery to purchase Cold Mountain, right?
Hard to beat. Really hard to understand, but I read the book. I love the name, and I changed the name. And then the movie came out after that, and that took off again. It hit a niche that I couldn't predict. No.
Anything else that you see changing or new or innovative that you might want to give us little secrets or hints about coming down the road?
You're asking the wrong person.
We have to ask Leah those questions, right?
You need to ask Leah that because they're along those lines. Highland is now 50% leadership women.
Wow.
It works out for us because it's a good balance. Us guys are we're good at getting it done, but we leave bodies behind. The ladies will say, is that what we should be doing? They'll question it. They'll have a broader view of how to accomplish it. And it works very well. I'm proud of them. I mean,
well, she certainly had a great influence with you. You certainly paved the way, not only for Leah, but for all of the other brewers who realized that Asheville was a great place to be. And it's made it not only a destination for travel, but for business and industry. And I've watched it grow just in the 17, 18 years that I've lived here. People owe you a lot of gratitude as well for what you helped to grow in this part of the country.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very gracious.
Well, it's all true. It's all true. And everything that you have contributed. I mean, it's just folks who know you are very fortunate and blessed to be able to call you an acquaintance or a friend or a fellow Rotarian. And I want to say thank you also just for your time, because I know that you could have done anything today, but to hang out with me for a little while and share stories and to hang out with me again, because I know that's our deal, that I'm going to come over and have some beer and wine and
absolute pleasure. Yeah,
that's our deal. So, and then maybe if this podcast is successful and popular, then down the road we're going to have Leah on as a guest, and we'll hear her side of the story, and we'll see if she tells us the same things that you did.
Or her perspective could be slightly different, or very different.
It might be. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and for sharing what has become, it maybe wasn't your original purpose was to become this master craft brewer, but as you experimented and grew, it certainly became a passion, and you have shared your passion with so many other people. And for that, we are truly grateful.
It's been fun. And thank you for all you've done. My goodness, you got more energy. Oh, people get worn out just watching you move.
Oh, thank you. You're sweet.